to another episode of the NBA Outlet Preview Series presented by OTGBasketball.com. I'm your host, Diesing-Fay. With me on this Sunday afternoon, Wichard. What's up, Harris?
How's it going, Nick? Great to be here and continue our NBA Preview Series. Today we begin with number 24 from, according to our writers on the site, the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, Orlando, they made a lot of moves this summer. Interesting choices. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So with what they have with their roster, I think 24 is a fair choice. They could get a little higher if they make another move, but definitely overstock in that big man category.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of movement. We know about the Oladipo trade with Ibaka. Ibaka and Green should help a little bit, but the jury is definitely still out on this ball club. I mean, I really just don't know how I feel about them. It's going to take some time to feel each other out and see how the roster's put together. But I think we know they moved Tobias a couple years ago, the Long Island product. Obviously, now we know they moved Oladipo. They're going in a new direction. Still have the guard Payton. Alfred Payton, kind of like his game a little bit. Not much of an offensive player, but they have a lot of first-round draft picks on this team. 7, 8, 9, 10 of their guys are first-round draft picks. So they have a nice young group. There's no one on their roster who's actually played 10 years in the league. The highest experience is C.J. Watson, who's played 9 years. But so it's a younger team. Still, the jury is still very much out on the Magic. I still don't see them as a playoff team. I think they have some work to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the roster just doesn't make much sense. They already have some bigs. They had Wichard, Aaron Gordon. Then they go out and get Ibaka, Bismack Biyombo, and Jeff Green plays a lot of the four now. So where all these guys going to play, it's kind of interesting. But these acquisitions make sense in the fact that now Frank Vogel's the coach. He's more defensive-minded. He got his rim protectors in Ibaka and Biyombo. So, the defense is going to be something that he's going to try to bring along. But offensively, it's going to be tough for the Magic.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think sometimes, though, you can't have enough interior play I guess in the way the league is right now, it's very perimeter oriented. But if you have some strong fours and can rotate them, I think those guys are going to battle and compete for minutes. That could be a positive. I mean, I know we talked a little bit about the Sixers and how they were overloaded at a certain spot in the front court. And I think sometimes it could work as a positive because the cream rises to the crop. But in this case, I hear your point. But at the same time, maybe you find out that Jeff Green and another Gordon and all the other guys that they've added, Vucevic and Biyombo, they start fighting for minutes in Ibaka, and it could maybe create some good competition in camp for the Magic.
Well, yeah, I think it'll create good competition, but also you're sacrificing a lot of your salary cap, just to these guys, and there's only so many minutes that can be played at power forward and center. And if you already have a guy like Vucevic, you don't want to, sit him and Ibaka you just traded for, so. And Biyombo,
Ibaka's gonna start.
Yeah, Ibaka and Wichard will probably start.
Yeah. Right. So off the bench, you'll probably have Biyombo. Jeff Green could start the 3, but I think they're going to start Gordon at the 3 at 6'9", 220. He could probably play some 3, and he did a little bit last year, athletic enough to guard the 3. So they'll probably run out a lineup of, Alfred Payton, Ibaka, Vucevic, Jeff Green, and Gordon and Fournier will probably start the 2.
Yeah, and that lineup probably struggles offensively when you have 2 shooters like Payton and Gordon out there.
Right. Well, Gordon's could be improved. I think Gordon's going to be improved on the perimeter. Fournier is a decent shooter, not a great shooter, decent shooter. But Ibaka could stretch the floor at the 4. We've seen him in his 7 years in the league continuously develop his jumper to the point where he can shoot the 3 a little bit now. And Vucevic is a decent offensive threat. But, yeah, I think Payton is like a poor man's Rondo in the sense that he loves to pass first and is not a reliable source on the perimeter offensively. If he could develop his offensive game a little bit, that's obviously going to do wonders for the Magic. But I still don't think this roster, like you said, makes a ton of sense, but it's a team that's going to compete. But like we'll explain later in our emoji, we just don't really know how to feel about this team.
Yeah, you really don't. It's hard to gauge. And you mentioned they traded Tobias Harris last year, and then they traded Victor Oladipo this year. So, I mean, you don't really know what's going on. They did change head coach like Frank Vogel, we said, which, they are getting a good head coach because I thought he did a great job in Indiana. So that'll help them in that aspect, but it'll take time for him to get the roster the way he wants, especially with this overload of bigs.
Well, I also want to talk about, the direction of the Magic franchise. I mean, you're talking about a team, and I found this stat today, and I found it extremely interesting. You're talking about a team that won 35 games last year, 25 games the year before, 23 games the year before that, and then 4 years ago. Before that, they've had Jock Vaughn for 3 of those 4 years, and then Skiles. But during the Stan Van Gundy years, the 5 Stan Van Gundy years, they made the playoffs every season from 2008 to 2012, 5 years in a row, including the lockout year. They won 52, 59, 59, 52, and then 37 in the lockout shortened year. Stan Van Gundy was doing a tremendous job with this franchise. You remember the problems he had with Dwight Howard. And since the coaching change of Stan Van Gundy, this franchise has been in the gutter for now 4 consecutive years. Now, they made improvement last year, but then switched their team. I love Vogel as a coach. That could be a determining factor because there's decent talent on this team, but what do you make of what Van Gundy did and then what the Magic organization has been since then?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, Vogel brings a new direction. And like you said, I thought Van Gundy did a great job in Orlando. He's doing a great job in Detroit. So I think you can see that there. And then Orlando's kind of made some poor decisions. They handled that whole Dwight thing kind of part of it was Dwight. I think part of it was Orlando, and it just was not handled well at all. So since then, they haven't been good. And, Vogel at least gives them, that leader at the head coach position. And he did good stuff with some Indiana teams that weren't all that talented. And then when you give him talent, I think he had the Pacers as the number 1 seed one year and back-to-back years in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right. So I think you look for Vogel to, like you said, he's a defensive-minded guy. He had Stevenson and Paul George, 2 of the better perimeter defenders in the league. So he has a Thibodeau mindset that we'll see Thibodeau in Minnesota, but it's going to be a pretty good defensive team. Ibaka's a pretty good shot blocker. They call him a blocker for a good time in OKC. Vucevic isn't extremely defensive-minded, but with Biyombo and they have some decent perimeter players and defensive players. Jeff Green is a pretty good defender. I think the Magic are going to stop people. I'm just not quite sure how much they could score.
Yeah, they'll definitely be playing those slow type of games.
Yeah.
But, I think, like you said, they'll stop people because they have some great defensive players. It'll be interesting to see, we'll talk about this later, but Mario Hezonja, how he develops this year. But let's talk about draft picks. So the Magic traded their first-round pick with Victor Oladipo for Serge Ibaka, but they did have a second-round pick. They drafted Stefan Zimmerman out of the University of Las Vegas.
Yeah, UNLV, 6'11", 234, big kid. Played a little bit in the summer league, looked okay. Not a guy that really is going to stretch the floor for you. I don't even think he attempted a 3 in the summer league, so played about 25 minutes. But UNLV, 19 years old, young kid. So he only spent 1 year in college. So he was all right in college. He's more of a raw project. Everyone wants to take the Porzingis route because he kind of has that same build. He's not very strong. His rebounding wasn't great in college. And so, the jury is still out on him. So we'll have to see. But actually, I'll give him credit. 8 rebounds a game in 26 minutes isn't bad. 10 points a game in college. So Zimmerman will be a project. And with all those bigs they have, don't expect anything from him right away at 19. But, maybe the Magic could get lucky in his development.
Yeah, and we could talk about the trade with the Serge Ibaka pick because, you might not expect that Orlando to, pull the trigger on that. It seems like the team wants to get competitive faster, trading for a player like Ibaka. The only interesting thing about it, though, is Ibaka's on a contract year. So they essentially just risked the first-round pick and Victor Oladipo while he's a restricted free agent for Ibaka, who could just leave this summer.
And I'm sorry, I thought Zimmerman I thought he was a foreigner. He's actually born and bred in the United States, so I was misspoke on that. He's from Henderson, Tennessee, and he went to school in Nevada at high school. So he has a 6'11", 234 build, so like a Porzingis type body, but and lengthy. But and he doesn't really shoot the three, but he's not a foreign guy. He's born and bred in the United States. So with the Ibaka deal also, that was, to me, when I first saw that, I said Durant's leaving. I just thought once OKC was willing to mix things up a little bit, I thought they were just going to move on from the Durant era. They kind of knew something like, all right, it's Westbrook's team, and Oladipo now is in OKC. So that deal kind of shook things up in OKC. That's where I thought they were moving towards. And I think Oladipo is going to be all right there. But as far as Ibaka goes, I think he's going to thrive as closer to the number one as he'll ever be. You can't really expect him to be a one-on-one guy. But who's the best scorer on this Magic team right now? You know, you have to think about that for a second. They're going to have they're going to have a scoring by committee attitude. They might have 4 or 5 guys averaging 12 or 13 or more, and Ibaka might be the leading scorer on this team.
Yeah, no, Ibaka will definitely have his opportunities. I'd probably say, Vujicic might be the best scorer on this team, and then Evan Fournier. But like you said, if they want to be successful, they're going to have to do it as a team. And Ibaka, like you said earlier in the show, he's developed his jump shot. He's out to the three-point line now. Maybe this summer he can add a little bit more to his game.
I think they're going to complement each other well, Vucevic and Ibaka.
Yeah, definitely, because Vujicic, not a great defensive player, not necessarily a great rebounder. And then you bring in Ibaka, who's a great great rim protector, and a great rebounder. So,
Yes, sir.
But time to talk about their other acquisitions this summer for Orlando. Another rim protector, Bismack Biyombo. They picked up Jeff Green, DJ Augustine. What do you like? What do you think was a good signing? What do you think is
Jeff Green's one of those guys in the league you just never really know. He had some good years in Boston. He had a year in OKC. He was okay, but you just don't really have extremely high expectations, for him anymore. He's a solid perimeter defender. He'll get out in transition, and he'll finish with some of the best of them. And he'll make a play, and he'll say, wow, Jeff Green could be a 15-7 guy in this league. And then he'll make a play and say Jeff Green probably shouldn't be playing more than 15 minutes in the league. So he's a wild card, but I guess worth taking the risk. Augustine's a professional backup, and he could come in for Peyton and spell him for 10 or 15 minutes. But Peyton's going to have to play 30, 35 minutes a game. I like his pace. I think Elfrid Payton's going to continue to get better. He seems to have a good attitude, good head on his shoulders. So Augustine's a professional backup, in my opinion. And Biyombo, who got the decent money and has had some decent years defensively, played for Toronto. So I think that's the best move. I think now that you have a three-headed monster in him, Ibaka and Vucevic, they're going to rotate those guys, and none of them are going to have to play crazy minutes if they stay out of foul trouble. And that's the best move I think they made all offseason.
It's a tough. I mean, I can see the Bismack move being good. It gives him that solid big off the bench. But 4 years, $72 million is a lot. I think a lot of the money he got is just based off this playoff run. Like, he's had success in the past, but the offseason before, Charlotte kind of was willing to let him go for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that's true. But
it'll be interesting to see how Bismack continues to grow after his playoff success.
Well, if you get him in there, a guy like Roy Hibbert looked like a great player under Vogel, and then we saw what kind of player he became later on. So if you get a coach like Vogel working with Biyombo, his athleticism is there. His body he's got a great great body. So it's one of those situations where did they overpay for him? Absolutely, but at the same time, if you looked around the market, I think he's a better pickup than Timothy Mozgov. So
yeah, no, I would go with Bismack over Mozgov.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But I think out of the 3 moves that we're looking at here, Green, Augustine, Biyombo will have the biggest impact on the roster.
Yeah, and he still might be the best move too. I think if you think about putting Ibaka and Biyombo out there at the same time, you have 100% rim protection.
Yeah, that's true.
That's crazy. Jeff Green, like you mentioned, he's just inconsistent. He just is like a letdown. He's just so disappointing. Every time he gets traded or signed somewhere, you're like, Jeff Green, he could really excel in this position, but it never happens.
Yeah, no, he's just he had a high ceiling, but something was wrong with the room. I mean, it's enough hearing about his potential, and I don't know his age at this moment. I could double check it for you. Jeff Green
He's
is
probably like late 20s.
30 years old now. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, his
Yeah.
his best years might be behind him.
Yeah. And DJ Augustine, like you said, professional backup. But it's interesting sign to consider they already had CJ Watson under contract too. And I mean, I don't know if they're going to go with a lot of 2 point guard lineups, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some player movement in Orlando this season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I think if they're going to give Vogel opportunity to work with what he's got right now. This is a team that, again, plays in the Eastern Conference, so you never know. I wouldn't count them out. I don't see them as a playoff team right now. But in that 6, 7, 8 realm, I just don't think you could really count anybody out. You have your 4 locks, and I've said this before on our preview series. Your 4 locks, in my opinion, the top 4 seeds are Boston, Cleveland, Toronto, and Indiana. I think those teams are going to be right there, those 4. And then after that, it's kind of like a crapshoot. It's all, all for nothing type of thing. I don't know who's going to fill in those spots, so I can't say the Magic aren't a playoff team. But at this point right now, I'd have them on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I agree with that. They did have a nice re-sign. They re-signed their guy, Evan Fournier. He's been a really improved player. So, they traded Oladipo. They had to keep this guy, obviously, to start at the 2-guard spot.
Exactly.
But on to their departures, there was a lot of guys out of town in Orlando. So first, we mentioned before, Victor Oladipo got traded. Dwayne Dedmon signed with the Spurs, I think. Jason Smith's out of town. Andrew Nicholson, Shabazz Napier, Brandon Jennings, Devin Marble. So a lot of guys out. Oladipo, obviously, the most impactful of all of them. Dwayne Dedmon, I thought he's a nice backup center.
I disagree. I think that Brandon Jennings was the biggest. No, I'm just kidding. The Magic are not going to miss Brandon Jennings. Napier, Nicholson, Smith, Dedmon, none of them. I mean, Dedmon was all right, but Oladipo is obviously the big guy. But with what they got back, the Magic were active, but at the same time, not anything drastic. The Magic didn't do anything where you turn your head and say, wow, the Magic are going to be a great team this year. So I don't think they're really going to miss anybody. Oladipo is a nice player. He'll have some nice moments in OKC, and Westbrook will make him look a lot better than he was in Orlando. But I don't think anybody is really going to be missing Devon Marble and Dwayne Dedmon. So,
yeah, I mean, not anything that sticks out to you. I probably would have tried to get maybe more value for Oladipo, just because you're trading for Ibaka and he's on a contract year and you're trading the 11th pick. It's tough. And then I don't know what they're doing in Orlando, but. All right, well, that wraps it up for, free agency for the Magic, their acquisitions, departures. But who on this team really needs to step up next season, give them that extra edge and help them go to the next level?
I'm going to go with a wild card here, Elfrid Payton. I think if he's a good leader and he needs to be a better shooter, obviously. But if he's a better leader, the leadership position, I think that they're going to go places. I like this roster. When he's playing well, they could be all right. We talked about our feeling about them, but if he takes his game to another level and gets the ball into the paint and kicks to some of their players and Ibaka and Fournier and Jeff Green, if he gets going, he needs to step up and get better. And under Frank Vogel, I like Elfrid Payton to be the guy that needs to step up.
Yeah, Payton steps up as a shooter. He'll dramatically help this team. They need him to be able to shoot the ball. And he'll have some great pick and roll partners. So he can really put some pressure on defense. I'm going to go with Aaron Gordon, though. I think this kid has a lot of potential. Everyone's obviously seen his size and speed in the dunk competition. It needs to translate that into actual, on-court production. And, under Vogel, he could really turn him into probably one of the top defensive players in the league with his speed and size and the athletic ability.
Athleticism. They definitely have some athleticism. I'm going to be interested to see how they use it for sure.
Yeah, so I think what needs to step up for the Magic this season is their young players taking the next step. Gordon, Payton, Hezonja, even Evan Fournier can get a little bit better still. So I look for this team to get a little better going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's going to come from some of their guard play. We know some of their bigs can play, but I think we both touched on it. Gordon could probably play a little too as well. I think it's going to come from their perimeter play. Their perimeter play needs to step up tremendously.
Do you think the Magic are going to be better or worse this year?
Right around the same. I think they were at So they're 35-47. I think they're right around the same. I think I'll give them a couple. I'll give them one more win. I got them at 36-46. So that'll be my prediction. I know you know I like to put the number on it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think they're going to be like 10th in the East, maybe 11th, 9th, 10th, or 11th, but right on that cusp, but unable to get over the hump to be what will probably need to be a 500 record to get into the postseason.
Yeah, I think they'll probably be a touch better just because they'll have some real veterans inside, some real rim protection inside, something they desperately lacked the last few years. But another year outside the playoffs.
Yeah, so we're in agreement that last year you had to be 44-38 in the East. Magic were 9 out. I say they could be they're going to be 4 or 5 off the pace is what I think they're going to finish at. And I forgot about the Hornets too, so they might be in the Pistons will be in the mix. So yeah, I think the Magic will be a little bit better than last year, but nothing to write home about here.
Yeah, I think Vogel probably needs one more year, get some more players that he likes, clean up the roster a little bit more. And then they'll be, a little successful in the future. But they still don't really have that true franchise player. So until then,
I can see them in the playoffs next year.
Until then, until they get this franchise guy or somebody really steps up, I think Orlando's just going to constantly be bottom of the playoffs. Excuse me, bottom of the playoffs.
Right.
But
absolutely.
And well, you gave your prediction already. So on to the truth. Where our emoji pick today for the Magic is what, Harris?
We're going to go with the non-emotion or expressionless emoji with no mouth. So the way we look at this is the Magic are just the Magic. We don't know really what to expect. I don't really have a strong opinion on them. They say the worst thing is to not have an opinion. It's either you hate something or you love something. For me, I'm indifferent when it comes to the Magic, and that's why we've decided to go with that emoji. And the truth on the Magic is that they're just not really that entertaining.
Exactly.
And I know that'll lead into the League Pass question, and you'll probably understand by that emoji you'll know my answers to that question.
Correct. So are you going to watch the Magic on League Pass?
No. I watch a couple games. Obviously, I watch everybody a couple times because the Nets and Knicks games are on in New York and stuff, and so I'll probably tune into a few, but, miss me with the Peyton to Ibaka combination. It's just not something I really want to tune into much.
Yeah, I'll probably, catch the games against the Nets, but really not much other than that, unless I got like a fantasy player playing in one of those matchups.
Right, and you got Jeff Green for 4,200, and it's the fourth quarter, and you need him to hit like 2 more shots. And, then he gets pulled out of the game for cramps or something like that. So
yeah, that's not a situation I want to be in.
No, yeah, you might find. And listen, if you play FanDuel Draft, and we spoke about that a few times in the show, you will find yourself up at 1 a.m. at times with a West Coast player on your team needing a couple points, and you probably will not come up with those points.
And you just stayed up extra late for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. Now you know the whole roster of the Sacramento Kings. Congratulations.
Yeah. That wraps it up for today. Thanks everybody for listening, and on to the next episode.
All right, guys. Yeah, number 23 coming up next, so be sure to tune in. Thanks for listening.